Welcome to this explainer. Right in the heart of Edirne stands an absolute architectural marvel. We're talking about the incredible Selimiye Mosque. When you first walk up to it, you are instantly greeted by these four majestic minarets just soaring straight up into the sky. It's a structure that absolutely dominates the landscape. I mean, it's a true masterpiece of engineering. But here's the thing. It's not just a triumph of cold stone and meticulously carved marble. As we're going to see today, it's also a home for patience and for these deeply delicate human stories. And today, we are going to unpack the most curious and captivating story of them all.
So think about this. We've got this massive, flawlessly designed structure, engineered by an absolute genius. It's visually and mathematically stunning, explicitly designed to project absolute divine and architectural perfection. And yet, hidden right within this grand perfection is a curious, almost jarring little microflaw, an upside-down tulip. Why on earth would the master architect take an inverted, bowed flower and place it inside an otherwise perfect, magnificent mosque?
Section 1. Selimiye's Little Secret. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand this mystery, we have to dramatically shift our perspective. We need to look right past the grand macro scale of the building, past those towering domes, the vast courtyards, and those soaring minarets, and focus all our attention on a tiny, very specific, and deeply intentional detail.
Imagine we're zooming our camera all the way in, just walking right into the serene heart of the mosque itself. We stroll past the massive columns and we approach the muezzin's lodge. Right there, etched into one of the marble pillars supporting the lodge, you'll find it. It's a tiny, carefully carved tulip motif. But its head is bowed downward. It's completely inverted. Now, this isn't some mistake by a clumsy stonemason. It's a deliberate, permanent choice. And according to historical lore, there are two very famous, very different legends explaining exactly why it was put there.
Section 2. First legend, the Stubborn Gardener. Let's start with this first legend, which has a bit of a witty, almost comedic friction to it. It actually involves a major clash of wills between a very grand architect and a very unyielding local resident.
The story goes that when the great architect Ters Sinan, or Mimar Sinan as he's known, was commissioned to build the grand Selimiye Mosque, he meticulously surveyed the land to find the absolute perfect foundation. And he found it, the ideal hill. But there was just one massive obstacle. Right exactly where the core of the mosque needed to sit, there was a lush, beautiful, blooming tulip garden. And the owner of this garden? A local woman who utterly refused to sell her land. She just dug her heels in. She resisted the grand vision of the master architect, which, as you can imagine, created a massive headache for the entire project. So, after long, exhausting efforts to persuade her and just endless negotiations, she finally agreed to a conditional surrender. But she had one strict, absolutely non-negotiable demand. There will be a trace of my tulips somewhere in the mosque. She demanded that her beloved garden not be forgotten, but be permanently remembered and honored right within this monumental structure. And this brilliantly illustrates the genius and, let's be honest, probably the sharp sense of humor of Mimar Sinan. He agreed to her condition. He had a tulip motif carved into one of the marble pillars, fully honoring her wish. But he had it placed upside down. In Turkish lore, this visual inversion represents her Ters Lale, a concept that basically translates to contrariety, resistance, or stubbornness. So that inverted tulip forever immortalized not just her beautiful garden, but her incredibly stubborn attitude, literally carving her reluctance directly into the stone for all of history to witness.
Section 3, Second Legend, the Lost Granddaughter. But, there is another narrative altogether. Let's slow down for a second and shift our perspective from a witty, architectural joke to a story of profound, quiet heartbreak and devastating loss.
According to this much more somber theory, while Mimar Sinan was overseeing the monumental construction of the mosque, he kept his beloved granddaughter, Fatma, constantly by his side. They were utterly inseparable. She was a bright light for the architect as he worked on his absolute masterpiece. However, a sudden tragedy struck. While the building was still going up, little Fatma fell deeply ill and passed away.
Burying this immense pain deep inside his heart, Sinan wanted to engrave her memory into a quiet corner of his work. So he designed the tulip motif. The tulip itself captures the delicate, fragile elegance of a flower, directly representing Fatma. But the fact that it's upside down, with its head bowed downward, represents something far deeper. It symbolizes the crushing weight of a death, the excruciating pain of separation, and the physically bowed posture of deep sorrow. That tiny upside-down tulip is said to be the silent scream of a grandfather's immense grief, experienced right in the final twilight years of his life.
Section 4. The human within perfection. So, the crucial point is how we synthesize these two drastically different tales. We have this jaw-dropping masterpiece of stone, and within it, a tiny detail holding immense narrative weight.
On one side, we have the comedic stubbornness of the gardener, a really grounded, human battle of wills between a master architect and an unyielding local protecting her turf. On the exact opposite side, we have profound separation and grief, the devastating, life-altering loss of a beloved granddaughter. Whether it's the irony of human stubbornness or the crushing weight of sorrow, the emotional pendulum just swings wildly between these two legends.
And why does this actually matter to us? What should you really take away from this explainer? Well, it's the realization that true perfection isn't just about flawless geometry, perfect symmetry, or towering domes. It's about humanity. Regardless of which story is the actual historical truth, anyone visiting Selimiye who takes the time to seek out that tiny motif on the marble pillar learns a profound lesson. Even with an absolute, awe-inspiring perfection, there lies a tiny flaw. There is a hidden sorrow or a deeply human story just tucked away in the details.
Watch as these points build together, because they perfectly summarize the absolute magic of the space. If you visit the Selimiye Mosque today and look carefully at the marble feet of the Muezzin's Lodge, that inverted tulip speaks directly to you. It tells you that this simple mark represents sometimes stubbornness, sometimes it represents profound grief, but always, always, it is the ultimate expression of mastery. It's Mimar Sinan reminding us that even cold stone can be made to capture the entire, complex spectrum of the human condition.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with today. The next time you stand before a flawless piece of architecture or walk through a grand, perfect space, look a little closer. Look for the tiny imperfections. Look for the seemingly out-of-place details. What hidden, deeply human stories might be resting right in front of your eyes, just waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking closely and never stop seeking out the stories hidden in the stone.